Jubilation as South Africans welcome the World Cup champions back home after basking in the glory of their clinching their record fourth world title. Then the case against self-proclaimed TikTok doctor Matthew Lani has been withdrawn after facing charges of impersonating a medical professional. All this and more coming up on the day that was. I'm Melissa Dupré. The Springboks have returned home after lifting their record fourth Webb Ellis Cup after beating the All Blacks. Anchor Gareth Edwards and sport editor Vatan Ngobeni was there to bring us this live commentary.
The four-time world champions, only the second team ever in the history of rugby to do it back-to-back.
We left as world champions. We have come back as world champions. South Africa, this is the moment. 62 million people in one voice, in one moment against New Zealand. Watch them do what they do best. I think what we're going to do is let's take a listen in to the crowd, Vata, as they begin to make their way out. The officials beginning to move everybody out the way.
South Africa, here are your world champions. Johannesburg or Tambo. Starting from the township of Sweden, where Siamtanda Police comes from. We go to the likes of Paul, Wellington, and here are the Springboks.
Siya Kolisi with the Webb Ellis Trophy for the second time in his career, bringing it home ahead of the Springboks, stopping to wave with everyone. The rest of the Springboks are about to follow him. The South African flag draped over his shoulders, lifting it to the audience on level 1 and level 2 at OR Tambo International Airport. It was those years ago he stood with the president, recently standing with Cyril Ramaphosa as well. A moment that'll go to the annals of South Africa's history and sporting history.
You know, when you talk about transformation, squad depth and all those kind of things, the team spoke honestly and said, Coach Jacques and Rassie said, we are going to win, but we're going to be transforming while we're winning, because a lot of people didn't get this opportunity. So many people who fought for South Africa to change, who fought for me to be able to put on this jersey, weren't allowed to put on this jersey. So now we're going to make sure that this team transforms, and it transforms not by just putting people of color there. We train them, we make them good enough to be there so that when they do play there, they represent South Africa. And I do believe that everybody who's played in the team has been good enough. And that's the thing also, we need to learn to mind each other in our different cultures, not just in rugby, but in community as well, in businesses, all that we do. You know, you can't just want to force your way because this is how you do things. Think about the next person next to you. And that's what we've learned. And Coach Rassie asked us, let's not keep it here in the team. Let's speak about it openly and honestly. We also want to see in Parliament, and we'll speak about serious stuff. How are we going to deal? How are people dealing with what happened in South Africa before? How is the next generation going to see the way forward? No, that's so important for us as South Africa, because I feel like a lot of things are spoken about, but the serious issues because are too sensitive to speak about them in public. But we need to, because we need to learn. We need to know what's the way forward. How do we get better as South Africa? Because I know this win will inspire a lot of people, but it's not going to change how people are in circumstance. But for us as players, it's going to give us a platform that we can open more opportunities, like with our foundation, the works that we do around South Africa. So, yeah, we really hope this just doesn't end in a little bit of celebrations for a week, and it needs to do more.
Needless to say, the Springboks received a hero's welcome at OR Tambo International Airport. Despite the cold and rainy weather, people showed up to celebrate South Africa's national rugby team.
An overwhelming reception for an outstanding team. The Springboks were greeted by thousands of jubilant fans singing and dancing to celebrate their successful defence of the Rugby World Cup. Some waited for hours just to catch a glimpse of their favourite player.
We are supporters, not just fans. We took leave, we were up by 5 a.m, we were here to have breakfast because we support the Bokke!
I'm here for the Bokke because they're my religion, they're my voice, they're my everything.
I come from Utogwa. 7 hours to be here from 2 o'clock because of Springbok. Strong together, we're united. We fight together. We love you, Buke, since from day one. Supporting you. My man is finished because of you, but I'm happy.
We just want to welcome them home. We just want to give them the support that we wish we could have given them all the way in France, but we're just happy to give it to them here right now today.
They showed up for us, so we have to show up for them.
Although they've won the Webb Ellis Cup for a record 4th time, supporters say they have achieved much more.
They brought the country together. We know we come from a divided country, but look what the sport is doing. Black, white, Indians were all gathered here to welcome our champions. That's the reason why I'm here, just to say to the boys, thank you for bringing the country together. We love them.
Well done, Boca. Thank you for taking South Africa to new heights.
The 60 million people in South Africa, we're so proud of you guys. Like, you guys go there and show like what our country can do when we all unite. So, just so proud of them.
And we can't wait to see it again.
South Africans, hulle weet nie wat ons weet nie. They don't know what we know. Government, divide us. Sports unite us. Yes. Sports unite us.
They've just made our dream come true, made a country come together no matter what. And we just want to say we love you guys and thank you for everything that we do.
We love you, Boca. We love you so much. We've been supporting from the day one. We love you so much, Boca. We love you.
The squad's victory tour will begin on Thursday. Eugenie Grigan, Kempton Park.
The case against social media influencer and bogus doctor Matthew Lani has been dropped. The well-known influencer posed as a doctor on social media, even appearing in scrubs at some healthcare facilities. Our reporter Pulile Tweety Jones has been following the case.
So what next for Bongani Matthew Lani, who's a free man? The eNCA says it will decide whether or not to institute criminal proceedings against the suspect once outstanding investigations have been complied with. The Hawks are now faced with the task of producing evidence that can stick against Lani. This after a charge of impersonating a medical doctor was withdrawn against the social media personality.
And to say that a person has misrepresented, if we allege that a person is misrepresented, then that must be followed by actual or potential prejudice. So currently, information that is contained in the docket, we don't have such information. Hence, we have given instructions for investigations that must be complied with. Once that is done, that docket will be brought back to the eNCA for a decision.
Lani, who came out from the court precinct with a bruise under his arm and a wound on his lips, didn't have much to say but expressed his desperation to get home.
The past couple of hours have been difficult, but I'm quite happy with the attorneys and that the case got withdrawn. Right now, I just want to go home, sleep, and then heal my wounds and take it from there.
Lani's legal representatives were confident the matter wouldn't be placed on the court roll.
The hospitals, the least they could have done was to maybe ban him from going to hospitals and taking videos. And if we were to continue that, then that would be trespassing, and they would have a case against him.
Lani has refused to comment about his academic qualifications and denies ever prescribing medication to anyone. Pule Tweety Jones in Johannesburg.
One of the suspects in the Senzo Meyiwe murder trial claims he was assaulted, suffocated and electrocuted into confessing. Metro police officers have denied the allegations. eNCA's Manqoba Ngunu brings us the latest.
Yet another Metro police officer disputing accused number 2's version of events.
Now, did you notice any injuries on this suspect that you identified as accused number 2?
No, I didn't notice any visible injuries.
Lessering was one of the officers that escorted Bongani Ntanzi to the Boksburg Magistrates Court, where he made his second confession before Magistrate Vivian Cronier. He maintains at no stage was Ntanzi ever assaulted.
There's evidence that you were heavily armed. I just want to know, were you in full uniform as well?
Yes, I was in full uniform.
Were you in possession of firearms?
Yes, I was, my lord.
Did she ever remark as to whether she was intimidated by your presence or not?
I cannot comment on whether she commented if she was intimidated, but just ask us why so heavily
assertion
Yes.
put by Mr. Ngomezulu, accused number 2's counsel,
Yes.
even number 1's counsel, that when you were doing those duties of escorting, at some stage you were present when the 2 accused were assaulted.
I can confirm here in front of the court, my lord, I was never involved in or witnessed any assault in my presence.
A police officer who was involved in the arrest of accused number 1, Muzika Ukhulelwa Sibiya, also told the court how live rounds of ammunition were found at his place on the day of his arrest.
Where I was checking on the bed, just above that, there was a plastic that was hanging there. Inside that plastic, there was another plastic that was attached to another plastic. When I opened that plastic, I discovered unused bullets, live bullets. There was also 1 magazine, there was also 1 cleaning rod.
Can you perhaps remember the caliber thereof?
It's
a 9mm.
It was a 9mm rounds.
Sibiya was arrested on the 30th of June in 2020, the same day he allegedly confessed to Colonel Mhlanganyelwa Mboto. But Buthelezi says he never saw Sibiya being escorted to the Deep Kloof police station where the confession was taken. The trial within a trial continues on Wednesday. Manqoba Mchunu, Pretoria.
After the break, we look at some of the most talked about eNCA interviews featured on eNCA. See you soon. Welcome back to the day that was. I'm Melissa Dupré. Controversial self-proclaimed doctor Matthew Lani has appeared in court where the charges against him have been withdrawn. Prior to this, the South African Medical Association expressed its concerns about fake doctors. eNCA's Tami Ngubeni spoke to the association's Dr. Mvuyisi Mzukwa.
Talk to us about how prevalent this situation is. Dr. or so-called Dr. Matthew Lani is not the only one who has been posing as a doctor.
Good morning to you, Tami, and to your viewers, and thanks for having me. Tami, this is very disheartening. You'll understand that in the past we've been told that the HPCSA have identified and led to arrest of about 124 fake doctors. So we know now that, this is very prevalent in our communities. And I think that is why now we have to strengthen what the HPCSA is doing. I commend them for the inspectorate unit that is on the ground. But I think, as you have, you may have heard, that it is actually dangerous for them as well. They have to travel there with security protection, to identify these fake doctors. But what we've noted now is that people are not afraid of the law. They just come out, in the public and claim to be doctors when actually they don't have any of these qualifications.
What's quite concerning here, Doctor, is that in the case of Lani, for example, he was actually giving medical advice online, and he's actually selling medication as well. What advice would you give to the community as to how to approach this?
Well, this, it is very difficult for communities, to be identifying or even verifying those doctors who are online using social media platforms. But it is important that we know that we need not take social media platforms seriously when it comes to fake people who are claiming to be healthcare professionals. I think we need to protect ourselves and make sure that you are dealing with somebody who's registered, because in most cases, those people don't use their actual name. They use the social media identity.
The medium-term budget policy statement will be delivered on Wednesday afternoon. It's being described as the most politically contentious of its kind. Business anchor Melissa Tuchy had this conversation with Alex Gwala from Deloitte Africa.
Alex, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Why do you think this statement is so important, given the current political climate and ahead of the election next year?
I think you've just mentioned it. It's the election that is coming next year. Other than that, it's just a medium budget as normal. Obviously, the conditions have deteriorated since the February budget. So everyone is looking at how the minister is going to respond to the challenges that the country is facing.
Now, what are the actual state of government finances? Are we running out of money?
That would be an exaggeration, but the reality is, since the budget speech in February this year, things have deteriorated, and as you will know, that the government source of revenue is tax collections. So those tax collections are currently expected to fall short. Others are estimating 30 billion, others are estimating 50 billion. So if that happens, you want to make sure that you come up with measures before February, March next year to make sure that shortfall is addressed.
So if this deficit or shortfall is not addressed, if you could just explain to us, what could be the consequences to us South Africans?
So currently, if you look at our debt to GDP, is already over 70%. And the cost of servicing that debt is huge. And most of that debt was accumulated through funding consumption as opposed to investing to infrastructure. So our option is either to increase that debt, increase taxes, or manage your spending. And increasing of taxes, as you will have seen in the past, they increase VAT, but the expected collections never really materialized. So it shows that the taxpayer has gotten to a point where they can't pay more taxes. So it eliminates the tax increases. Then you look at the debt, you increase the debt, but it's also a challenge. So I think the focus should be on cost containment.
The Goldwin Mine is threatening legal action against the workers behind the 3-day hostage drama. Over 500 mine workers affiliated to the National Union of Mine Workers were kept underground, allegedly by members of eNCA. eNCA's Tumelo Mototwane spoke to Ziad Hassam, the mine's legal head.
And pretty much from that point onwards, up until Wednesday afternoon, a group of around about 570 employees were held underground against their will, up until, as I said, the point where they came out on Wednesday afternoon.
So Ziad, are you saying that some of the statements shared that the reason the workers were still underground was because they were in protest with regards to wanting eNCA to be the union that is officially recognized by Goldwin? Is that statement false?
Well, a small number of people clearly were acting on behalf of eNCA. So 40 or so people were kind of the ringleaders, and it's likely that there would be a number of those who were sympathetic to the eNCA position. But the vast majority, from the reports that we've got from employees who've come back to surface, the vast majority of those employees were being kept against their will. They wanted to exit, as they would normally do on Monday morning, and they were prevented from doing that. So they were very much kept against their will.
Yeah. In terms of the next steps that the mine is taking now, what action are you taking?
So there's a range of options. I think operationally, we kind of just getting ourselves back on track. We've conducted a fairly thorough review of events and putting measures in place to ensure that something like this doesn't happen again. We're also getting people back to work in a phased approach. We need to ensure that they are in the correct physical and emotional state to come back to work, and also just to make the areas underground safe again. So that's been happening over the last few days. I think from a discipline point of view, we are certainly taking action, internal disciplinary action against anybody that has contravened our code of conduct in any way. And for those that have been involved in alleged or suspected criminal activities, we are working with the police to identify those people and to take the appropriate action.
You're watching The Day That Was. More top stories and interviews coming up after the short break. See you soon. Welcome back to The Day That Was. I'm Melissa Dupré. A A storm is brewing in the Eastern Cape after a decision was taken by SA Rugby to take the World Cup trophy tour to East London instead of Gqeberha. Many Nelson Mandela Bay residents believe their region is the historical home of Eastern Cape rugby and the economic hub of the province. eNCA's Ronald Masinda reports.
Two-time Rugby World Cup winning captain Siya Kolisi and director of rugby Rassie Erasmus both hail from Nelson Mandela Bay, and it is for this reason that Mayor Gary van Niekerk believes adoring rugby fans from the region should not be deprived from experiencing the Rugby World Cup bus tour experience.
We've asked the President of SARO, Mr. Mark Alexander, as well as the gentleman organising the tour, Mr. Yusuf Jackson, and then we've also interacted with the Premier, and on top of that we've interacted with EPRU, Eastern Province Rugby Union, and we're putting all kinds of pressure on everybody involved so that we can do the right thing in the end. I think the decision they came to, it's our firm belief that it's the wrong decision.
The ANC in the province says the decision to snub Nelson Mandela Bay is a political one.
We know for a fact that there's been a tug of war between the leadership of SARO and the leadership of Eastern Province Rugby Union. For a while, if you follow rugby, you'll notice that there have not been any test matches of Springboks in Gqeberha for the past 3 or 4 years. And the question is why? Whilst we know that it has got a rich history of rugby and has got following of rugby. And then you will conclude that this is just a snub.
Meanwhile, former Springbok Tim Dlulani says he understands why the Buffalo City Metro has been chosen as the destination of choice in the Eastern Cape.
But what I believe SA Rugby's selection was, who is in the team that has an impact within the communities, which is coming in with the Eastern Cape. We are fortunate to have Mampimbi, Lucano M, on that team, and then so not being cheeky, and so it will be about time for Nelson Mandela Bay and to have a Springbok in the team. They were knowing that now in the planning you are going home, you are taking the cup home. I think that is their selection and looking at the impact of the communities and the distance.
The Rugby World Cup bus trophy tour will wrap up in East London on Sunday. Ronald Masinda, East London.
Meanwhile, residents of Solari's Pass village are still waiting to be moved to permanent housing. It's been a month since they were displaced by a Western Cape storm. Our reporter Kevin Brandt has the story.
Flooding resulting from last month's rainstorm has wreaked havoc in the 8K informal settlement in Solari's Pass village. Local authorities have now made temporary housing available for 32 families, while plans are in place to permanently relocate them to another area within the community.
We have now accommodated the 32 families in an incremental development area, an IDA, where they're being temporarily housed. It's seen as a transitional space. We have identified land for their relocation. We are currently reserving that land. So once informal settlements management receives power of attorney, we can then start preparing the site. That will take about 3 to 4 weeks. And then we'll have the residents on their own sites, service sites, full services, and they can begin to rebuild their lives.
The relocation process is expected to take about 1 month. But some residents impacted by the severe storm who are yet to move to the temporary housing area say they would prefer to stay in their existing location.
Ek voel lekker van hoekom ek is gewoond aan hierdie area. Dit was vir ons baie lekker hier. Stil, niks moeilikheid in hierdie uitkykgebied nie. Jy sal nooit hoor hier kom polisie of sulke goedie van ons het in vrede gelewe hier. Ons almal ken mekaar en ons het mekaar gehelp. As iemand siek is, het ons 'n ambulans gaan bel. Ons het mekaar gehelp in hierdie area.
City officials say they won't allow people to rebuild their homes here.
We've taken the space in Pinetown and 8K where they resided before, and we've completely bulldozed and remorphed the ground to channel with the river so no one can stay there again. I don't want to return when there's another 1 in 20, 1 in 100 year flood and go and relocate people again.
Meanwhile, the storm-damaged N2 highway outside Bot River has been repaired and the road has been reopened. Kevin Brandt, Solari's Pass.
And that's a wrap for this edition of The Day That Was. From myself and the team, Thanks for watching.